Welcome back to the Seedy AF podcast. I'm Jocelyn.
And I'm the Omega. Today we're doing something a little different. We asked others who work in the adult game industry about how they got started, and we're going to share their answers with you in this episode. Now let's get seedy.
First of all, apologies for the hiatus that we took with this podcast. The past few months, we've been really focused on finishing up Chapter 4 of A Shot in the Dark. And with that out of the way, we're excited to get back to recording podcast episodes, in particular this one, because we've been sitting on the recordings from the other people for about 2 months now. So I'm sure they're anxious to hear this episode as well, and we're excited to record it for you. So for this episode, we asked other developers and people who work in the adult game industry to send us a recording about how they got started in the industry. We already answered this question in one of our early episodes, and we thought it was the perfect question for us to try bringing in some other voices onto the show, which was one of our goals for this year. We haven't actually listened to these in advance, so we're listening to them fresh for the first time with you in this episode, and then after we listen to them and play them for you, we're going to respond to them.
The first recording we're going to listen to is from HaruLuna. She's the very first voice actress we've ever worked with, and it was on our first game, Princess of Suburbia. She has a wide range and was able to do a great job in voicing all of the female characters that were in the game. She's been an absolute pleasure to work with, and we're more than grateful we found her years ago. You can find her content on Fansly.
So without further ado, here's HaruLuna.
Why, hello, dears. And did you miss me? Did you miss hearing my voice? Or just just hear it so casually like this. Hello, everybody. My name is HaruLuna. I'm a full-time voice actress, content creator, hobby VTuber, casting director, and more. So how did I start in the adult game industry? That's the only question Omega and Jocelyn asked me. So, long story. So it started I guess 2021, and I was a VA for about 8 months prior because I started at December 2020. All of a sudden I had a message from Omega because I posted an ad of myself being a voice actress for hire. Of course, I was new. I didn't have the best equipment, so but yeah, suddenly I got a message from Omega himself. He said he was hiring a VA for his game, and that is Princess Suburban. And it was like, whoa, really? You want to hire me? A new VA who's getting started and all that stuff. And so it was like, whoa, it was so big. And I took some time to think about it, and then I accepted. And it was the best 3 years of my life, and being in the VIM studios. So, and after that, it was like, whoa, this is the best, because I'm voicing in a pretty big game like Princess Suburban. Like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe on how big it became. Oh my god. Oops, sorry. So, Princess Suburban. It's actually the first game I actually voiced in, the first big indie game I voiced in. So it was actually the best, but it was not fun to see some old work. So it's just like, oh, I wish I could have improved all of the stuff I voiced in, but it's too late. And, best 3 years of my life in the voice acting community, the adult game industry. I am now the casting director. I am one of the main VAs, assistant for Shady Corner. It is a small indie game studio. Oh, yay. I know. Thank you, Princess Suburban. Thank you, VIM Studios, for the opportunity. Fucking car, shut up. I am also now featured in other small indie games that are not from Shady Corner. And I also review small indie games, mainly for fun, on Shady Corner YouTube. I'm also featured in some Shady Corner videos. I review small indie games, just mainly for fun. So expect some fun, wholesome jokes and loosen jokes on the way. Thanks to VIM Studios, I am now very confident in voicing in other games, like other small indie games like Drain Mansion, Dream Cutter, that's out on Nintendo Switch. Oh my gosh. I'm also in a cute indie game called Pocket Sweeties. Come Home by RJ Rons. I play as Kendra. And Yeah, there's like other games I voiced in right now, and there will be more later on. So I'm open. Look forward to it. So yeah, that concludes my question for how did I get to the adult game industry. So you can find me on my Twitter account, HaruLunaVO, or you can see me streaming during late evenings on Twitch. My Twitch account is HaruLunaVA, all lowercase. So everybody, thank you for tuning in for CD Podcast, and thank you Omega and Jocelyn for having me. Thank you.
So that was HaruLuna, and I know that my first impression of her was I was amazed by how deep her voice is, her natural voice, because for Prince of Suburbia, so much of her characters are like a little bit higher pitched. And as a woman, a fellow woman with a deeper voice, I appreciate hearing another woman with a deep voice. I think it's a very attractive quality.
And also, as a new game developer working on our first game, as mentioned before, she was the first voice actress we ever worked with, and it was just awesome that she could voice all the characters because of her wide range like that. And the other nice part is, this was our first game, like I said, and we were her first, game that ended up becoming bigger that she ended up voicing in. So it was just nice that our careers were essentially able to grow at the same time and that we're both finding success.
Yeah, I definitely relate to what she was saying about how, she goes back to the earlier recordings and she wishes that she could improve them with, the experience and the equipment that she has now. But I think that's really typical in this industry. And it's something that, I know we've said in this podcast before, which is, you can't wait until you have all of the perfect equipment and all of the experience and all the knowledge. Like, you're going to get that stuff by doing it. And, if you have to start off with your crappy GPU and your, lack of skills and whatever, just start with what you have, and then you're going to gain the experience and the resources needed as you go. And I think she's a perfect example of that, she just jumped in with both feet and has grown a lot. But that's certainly not to say that she didn't start off with a lot of, raw talent, but that, she's used all the time and that she's had in the industry to really refine her skills and improve her equipment and all, and, become even more professional, even though, she's always been extremely professional to work with. But, I definitely see the growth of, that she's even more organized, even more, confident and things like that.
And, the other thing that, I've noticed too is, just like anybody in the adult industry like this, she's dealt with challenges just like game developers have too. Most recent case being what's happened with Gumroad, and just the fact that they're kicking off all the voice actresses and people with the lewd audio, the not safe for work audio, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's why I wanted to mention Fansly there too, because I'm pretty sure she transitioned her content to that platform to make sure that she can still, earn a living in a way without getting kicked off a platform, because obviously they support that kind of content for now on Fansly anyways.
For now. Yeah, that's one thing I know that we've also always said about HaruLuna is that she has a lot of hustle, which we appreciate because we also consider ourselves to have quite a bit of hustle. And I think that's just, it's that hustle, it's that resilience. It's something that you need in this industry, which is the ability to pivot, the ability to be flexible, to change as the landscape changes. As you said, we've been able to grow alongside her in that way that, we've dealt with our own challenges as adult game developers with platforms, and she's dealt with different ones as a voice actress. But, we just keep going and don't give up and just stay optimistic and stay flexible.
The other thing I'll say real quick is, I really highly recommend HaruLuna as a voice actress. She's so easy to work with. She's so prompt with getting back to you and getting you exactly what you need. And if you need a revision, she'll get them done lickety split. So yeah, it's like I said before, it's just been a pleasure working with her all these years.
Yeah, I was happy to hear her plug Come Home by RJ Rhodes. I believe she was the first voice actress that RJ worked with. And RJ asked me if I had any recommendations. And, the only recommendation I had was HaruLuna. But yes, it was a wholehearted recommendation because we've loved working with her. And RJ has told me the same thing, that she loves working with HaruLuna. And, I was happy to hear, too, that HaruLuna mentioned that she's become a casting director for another studio, because that's something that we've talked to her about doing for our studio. And so, yeah, it's just great that she's been able to gain experience elsewhere that she can now bring back to help us with. So, it's a really mutually beneficial relationship.
And then also, congratulations, HaruLuna. to the other games that you've worked in now too, like Drain Mansion and on Steam. Like that game has been pretty successful too, and then Dream Cutter on Switch. I'm sure that it's super cool to see a game that you've contributed to being on the Nintendo Switch like that.
Yeah, I actually did not know that HaruLuna had a game on the Switch, and so when I heard that, I thought that was super exciting because I feel like that's a bucket list item for a lot of people who work in game development, is to have something on the Switch. It's something that we probably won't achieve as long as we're making adult games, but certainly it's something that we've thought about for the future, is that we would like to have a game that can go on Nintendo Switch. So it's a huge accomplishment for sure.
And then, we're just really looking forward to working with HaruLuna again. And, we spoke with her recently about being a voice acting casting director for Shot in the Dark now, too. So hopefully we're going to voice the characters and find voice actresses to fill the characters that she's not interested in playing. And, just looking forward to working with her again in the future.
For sure. The next recording that we're going to listen to is from Doc62. He helped our studio out initially with testing for A Shot in the Dark, and he was a developer for College Bound and writer as well during that time frame. Eventually, we were able to convince him to come help us actually be a developer for A Shot in the Dark with his coding experience, and he ended up contributing to the game as a developer for both Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, I believe, before he broke off to do his own game, City Park Playdate, which he just recently released the last update for. So I tease him that he's our big success story, because in all the years that we've been doing this and all the aspiring developers that we've helped mentor, I do think he's the only one that has actually gone on to make and now finish a game. So, we know what a huge accomplishment that is, and we're extremely proud of him and so happy that he has taken that leap to do his own game development, because, we know that was a dream of his, and we're always super excited to see other people achieve their dreams and to be able to help them achieve those dreams in any way that we can. And then I'm reading an introduction that the Omega wrote. So he has a little note here. It says, the best thing of all, of course, is that he's a fellow Minnesota Vikings fan, because one day they are going to win the Super Bowl, one day. But as a non-Minnesota Vikings fan, I can't say that that's necessarily an achievable dream.
Don't listen to them. They're just not believers.
And you can find Doc62's game on his Patreon page. And here's his recording.
Hey, Jocelyn Stark and the Omega. Doc62 here of Doc62 Productions. So, how did I get started in the adult game industry? It's kind of a funny story, actually. I was on vacation a few years ago and took my laptop with me, as I tend to do. Was in a hotel, and I fired up my Steam client to play, Civilization or something. I don't remember exactly. And you know how when you first launch Steam, they pop up like new releases and things. And it popped up something saying, here's a new game that is similar to things you've played that you might be interested in. It was called College Bound. I'd never heard of it. And so I went to its Steam page and I read the description and I said, holy shit, I don't think I've ever played anything like that before, but sounds interesting. So I downloaded it and I played it and I really enjoyed it, but there was one thing that bothered me about it. The use of the English language was, let's just say, less than optimal. I'm not exactly a linguist. I'm not a former English teacher or anything like that, but I know awkward English when I hear it, and I heard it. So I went and checked out this guy's Patreon. His name was Foz, and said, I think this guy's got some potential here. I think I'll give him a few bucks. So I signed up and started getting his Patreon releases. If anything, the language was getting more difficult. And I thought, I wonder if he has anyone who's a native English speaker that would check it out for him. So I started digging into it. I'm a longtime IT guy. I'm a programmer. I'd never used RenPy before. I certainly have written Python script, but the way that he had packaged his releases, or at least his Patreon releases, they had the source code included in the distribution. So I went and started combing through the files and started looking at the structure of the files and said, oh, okay, this is pretty straightforward. I think maybe I'll try to clean some of this up for him. So when his next weekly release came out, I took the new release and I went through and I edited it for him. And then I contacted him via a Patreon message and said, hey, I really like what you're doing. It's pretty clear to me that English is not your first language. And so I thought that maybe I could help you clean up your use of English a little bit. So here is this week's release with my revisions to make it a little bit more natural. I was a little concerned that he might be offended that I did something like that without asking him if it was okay. But much to my surprise, he got back to me within like a day and said it was fantastic. He really liked it and wondered if maybe going forward, he could send me the releases a day early so that I could review them before he released them to all of his patrons. And I said I'd be happy to do that. The rest is history. Not long after that, I became his head writer and chief programmer. Then, one thing led to another. I met some other fantastic people from a place called Vim Studios who were nice enough to throw me a bone and let me cut my teeth on some of their stuff. And now I'm working on my own title, and all because I was mentored by kind-hearted people like the two of you, and I really appreciate it. So that's how I got into the adult gaming business.
So yeah, I mean, obviously I know a lot about that story about how he already got into the industry in the past too. And, the honest truth about it is there are a lot of people that we've worked with in the past in our studio and some that still do work with us that entered in a very similar fashion where they just kind of reach out to us and tell us about their interest in the game. And it ends up, resulting in how they could possibly help us out and contribute to the game in whatever form or fashion that they are skilled with or want to.
That was exactly what I was thinking too, is that this is such a common story in our industry and has been a common story for us as well, that, we either have somebody reach out to us because they have a specific interest in helping with the game, or just that they are somebody who's clearly very interested in the game and they're very participatory in our Patreon and our Discord and are making suggestions and things like that. And then, we'll kind of recruit them in and say, hey, do you want to help with testing? Because you clearly love playing the game. And obviously we want testers that really love playing the game because they're not going to half-ass it. They're going to put a lot of effort into playing it and they're going to be excited to play it. And then a lot of times that turns into something more because they have some other area of interest or expertise. And we've had a lot of our team members kind of grow with us that way. And I think it just really points to how this industry is truly grassroots. And that's something that I really love about it, is that there really are no big corporations in this space. And, we've talked about in other episodes why that is. It's because the ceiling is too low for a lot of big companies, but it's a very undersaturated industry as long as you're small enough to, deal with that ceiling. And because of that, it is extremely individual and grassroots, and there's not a lot of distance between the players and the developers. And that results in a lot more collaboration and I think a stronger community and better games.
And, just to piggyback onto that, and something that we've talked about in the past before in previous episodes too, is, the space really isn't saturated and has a long ways to go before it ever gets to that point, if it ever does. And a big part of why I'm mentioning that is like Jocelyn mentioned earlier, we're super excited for Doc because he has created his first full game now. And then also, it doesn't hurt anybody. It only helps because it's going to bring more people into the space, the more games that are out there on Steam, on itch, on GOG, all that stuff. So we're very happy for him. So congratulations, Doc, on your first release like that. And I hope to see many more in your future.
Exactly. Yeah. This space is, that's another thing that I love about it, is that it's grassroots and that it's really not competitive. Developers are always trying to help each other because, the more we help each other, the more we raise the standard in the industry, the more we can band together against things like censorship and stuff like that. So, there's never any downside to us to helping another developer. And we're always super excited to hear about other people getting into the space, developing their games, and definitely excited that Doc was the very first one of our kind of mentees to actually put out a release and now finish a game. It's a huge accomplishment. We're super proud, and congratulations.
The other thing that I think is super cool is that Doc told us a while back that he was talking to some friends of his that were potentially interested in what he was up to and the adult industry. And he ended up, what sounds like to me, is mentoring them and telling them what is essentially going on with the adult game business and how to potentially make money. So the other cool thing there is that person ended up following what sounds like his advice and going through with it. And we've talked to them as well. And looks like they're going to release a game on Steam here in the near future too. So that's just one other person, as you're saying, the grassroots, that's hopefully going to find success in this space. And I just think that's super cool.
Definitely. Very cool.
So the last recording we're going to listen to is from a fellow AVN developer, DiPeppo, who is developing an AVN called Cyberheart. You can find his game on itch, Patreon, and Subscribestar. We met DiPeppo through the AVN Lover subreddit before he was a developer, and have been excited to watch his success grow over the last year or so. We're excited to share what he has to say about getting started in this industry.
The question is, how did I get started in the adult game industry? I think the reason I started doing AVN is because, first and foremost, I'm a pervert, I guess. But on a more serious note, I had an idea for a while now, and it was not anything related to loot or adult stuff. It's more of a romance type of thing, idea that I had back in my high school day. It's basically about our main character, a guy, saving a damsel in distress, and then the story goes on with the development of their relationship. So this was way back when I read a lot of comedy and romance mangas. For those who don't know, mangas are like comics, comic books. Anyway, that idea has always been at the back of my mind, though I didn't really make anything out of it. I guess you could call it like random access memories. The ideas that you had that you visit once in a while. Fast forward to about, I would say 2 years ago, I stumbled upon the genre of adult visual novels, and, I just went on a binge playing rampage. So that was when I realized that, alright, this can be a medium or a tool that I can use to tell everyone about my idea, my story. To be fair though, had I stumbled upon just visual novels instead of adult visual novels, things might have changed. You could have seen a safe-for-work version of Cyberheart instead of whatever you're seeing right now. Anyway, getting back to that spark of realization, I then played some more games, some more AVNs, to see whether there was something I could do. So yeah, I gave myself some time to study about, rendering, how does composition work, how do I pose the character, how does color theory works, like what color goes with what color basically. So after a while, I'm confident in my skill, and I knew that I could do it. So then I worked on the demo version of my game. It's like right before Christmas time. I still remember it. So the purpose is that I wanted to see whether that's something I wanted to do for the next year, for the next 2 years, maybe even more. It turns out that I enjoy doing it, every bit of it. The process, the results, the game itself, the people, the community. Yeah, everything was great. So I enjoyed that. So I kept on going. And that was the start of my journey.
So I don't know about you, but I immediately related when he talked about being a pervert. I think that's kind of a requisite for being in this space. And I love when people just say that unapologetically.
Yeah, I agree. And it was funny, but it's also for sure the reality. And I would imagine that everyone on this podcast episode is a pervert like we are, a deviant. Obviously, you have to be if you're willing to get into the adult space like this. So if nothing else, it's just being willing to take that risk and whatever comes with it.
For sure, yeah. I always love when developers are just unapologetic about it because, yes, that is something that unites us all in this space. And as I've said in other episodes, if you're not here and you're not okay with the adult content and you're not willing to kind of proudly say that you enjoy the adult content, then what are you even doing here? But I do appreciate, too, how he talked about how he had a story that he wanted to tell and that he realized this was a medium through which he could tell it. And that's something else that I relate to, which is, I've been a writer for a long time and I've written novels and I've tried to self-publish them. And I know that this is a path that is similar to RJ Rhodes, who makes Come Home, also experienced. And it's just a really oversaturated industry where you have these big publishers too that take up a lot of the space. And it's just really hard to get your story read if that's your goal, is to have people read and enjoy your story. And something that I really enjoy about the adult game industry and the adult visual novel industry in particular is that because it is undersaturated and there's a really hungry audience, you know that a lot of people are going to read and enjoy your story. And certainly, we've had 1 million downloads. That's more readers than I would have ever had, going the Amazon self-publishing route. And it is really gratifying as a writer to know that many people have read your story. And, I've thought about, I have novels that are finished and that are half finished. And I don't think I'll ever go back to self-publishing those stories because I really want them read. And I definitely would rather make them into games than have them just be regular novels, because I do think I'll get a bigger audience that way. Even if they're not necessarily super popular for this industry and are not going to make a ton of money, I would still get more readers than I would otherwise. And if the goal is to get readers and not money, you're still going to get more of that in this industry. And also though, what comes with that though is that you do have to learn all these other things like coding and, like he said, rendering engines and learning about photography and composition and what makes good aesthetics. And I think that's kind of the part that I took for granted, was like, well, that part's fun too. And I think there's a lot of writers out there who wouldn't find those parts fun. But when you have people like us or like RJ or like DiPeppo who realize that they enjoy all the other aspects too, like that's a perfect storm where, you're getting to make this really cool product that lots of people are going to enjoy, and you get to practice and learn all these different skills. Like it's a really cool thing, to be able to do that.
A couple other things I want to mention. I did play the first release of Cyberheart, and I just want to give props where props are due to DiPeppo, and that is the UI, the GUI. He was doing some really cool stuff in that first release. I haven't checked it since, but I just want to give you props on that, and I think you did a nice job with that, and you were doing some things that some of the other developers in the industry haven't up to this point. So we always have fun with the GUI and the UI side of things, like pushing the boundaries, pushing the envelope a little bit as far as that goes. So I just want to give you props on that. And then also Jocelyn let me know that it sounds like DiPeppo is going to be looking into Blender, or is already looking into Blender. And, I took a look at that, and my goodness, like it seems like a huge minefield, so much to learn, and probably so much to actually like get used to before you can actually feel like you're producing anything inside of Blender. So Godspeed, good luck. I'm sure we're going to go down that road one day with our next game too, and future games. One other thing I wanted to mention for DiPeppo is something that we've noticed is that DiPeppo is great with interacting with community. And on Avian Lovers, it seems like his games are received well, and that he enjoys speaking with the fans. And, honestly, that's one way that you do build up an audience for your games. And I just think it's awesome to see, when adult game developers are able to connect with the community like that.
Yeah, for sure. Like I've talked about in other episodes, I think that, people get into this for a variety of reasons. And I always encourage aspiring developers to be honest about their reasons for it. And I think it's always a combination of reasons. And they usually fall into the categories of, making enough money to make it a full-time job, having a lot of people, read and enjoy your work, and also having a really strong community of like really close and loyal fans around you that you can interact with, who, you get to have a little bit more closer relationships with. And I think every developer kind of prioritizes those differently. It's always great to see developers that just really enjoy interacting one-on-one with their fans, because, I think that's one of the most wholesome aspects of our industry, is how tight-knit the fan base is. And the developers that do a good job of interacting with them, they're going to find success in their own right, because that's a huge, piece of this industry, is that both players and developers really like that it's so, small and close-knit, and they can have those really close personal relationships.
And then the last thing from my perspective that I wanted to comment on is just that DiPeppo spoke briefly about manga. So as soon as I heard that, I was like, well, the easy transition from manga for a lot of people is into anime. So I'm wondering if DiPeppo is an anime fan too.
We hope you enjoyed this new format where we bring in other people onto the show to share their answers. That's something that we wanted to make as a goal for this year. And the more we thought about how we wanted to do that, we realized that the idea of, interviewing people in a live format is something that, first of all, it's hard to get people to convince them to do that, because there's a lot of pressure on both the interviewer and the interviewee. And while we're starting to feel more confident in our podcasting skills, we don't feel super confident in our interviewing abilities. So we felt like this was a good compromise where we could ask people questions, and then as people are interested, they can send in their answers. We can share them with you and also respond to them as well. But it takes a lot of the pressure off, and obviously takes some of the scheduling pressure off as well. And this is a perfect example, since we asked for these back in, I think, January, maybe got them in February. And then we obviously didn't record this until April because we were so busy with Chapter 4. And so, this is something we want to try out. Definitely let us know what you think about it. If you would like to have more episodes like this, let us know, because we would love to do more episodes like this. And we hope that this episode too convinces some of the developers that were kind of on the fence about participating, to show them that, this is a safe place where, we just want to share what other developers have to say, and share so that we can, amplify their voices as well, and not just our own. So we hope to both get more developers involved, and to also get more fans and players asking questions that we can ask to other developers.
If you have more questions or topics you'd like us to talk about with other developers, don't hesitate to reach out. And then, like Jocelyn said, if you're a developer or somebody in the adult game space and you want to be on the podcast and, have a little topic or question that you want to answer, let us know. And that being said, we hope we planted some seeds with you today. See you next time.
Bye.